Chocolatito is back, but different. We're going to go into how and the rest of the fights from the card last night in Nicaragua. So that first fight that I want to go over is going to be the Chocolatito one, and then we'll go into the other ones. But I do want to say this was a good card, so if you have ESPN Plus or have a chance to see it, definitely go ahead and check it out. So this bout was brought to you from Managua, Nicaragua, which is where Chocolatito is from. So he's fighting in front of his home crowd, and it's been a year and 8 months since the last time he fought. And the last time he fought, he lost the second of his two decisions to Juan Francisco Estrada, who recently lost to Bam Rodriguez. So the version of Chocolatito we saw last night is different because, for one thing, he's older. He's 37 years old, and he's also fighting at bantamweight. This is 118 pounds and a 10-round fight against a fighter from Colombia named Robert El Huracan Barrera. And his opponent was 27-5 with 17 KOs and promised to give a good fight and that he was there for real. He was. So Chocolatito came in, and in the first round, actually, it was his opponent Barrera who was taking over the fight and was taking it to Chocolatito, showing him angles, throwing flurries, and honestly, when I was watching it, I was like, man, Chocolatito looks a little bit slow. So I was a little bit worried about what was going to happen next. But I'll go into it round by round because this was a good fight. It was worth watching. In that first round, I would say Barrera had controlled the fight for most of the time, but in the last 45 seconds, that's when Roman Gonzalez decided to start putting a few punches together and was able to catch him with clean shots to the head, but it wasn't enough for me to say that he won the round in the last minute or so. So I gave that first round to Barrera, and he was up 10-9. Round 2 comes out, and Chocolatito is marching forward, but Barrera is consistently throwing punches, switching stances, and he's flanking Chocolatito as they go. Around midway, though, Gonzalez steps up to his attack and lands many clean headshots, rocking Barrera with a minute to go. Barrera keeps returning fire as he steps backward and circles, but Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez controlled enough of this round to win it, and I would put it at 10-9, 20-20 overall, so tied after 2. In round 3, if you're a Chocolatito fan, you're really going to want to see this round because he was controlling it from bell to bell, and it looked like the end is near. Like I was sitting there watching, I was thinking, oh, probably round 4, this fight's over. So Gonzalez is up now, 30-29, and going into round 4, I got a little bit worried again because Chocolatito didn't really. I don't think he threw any punches in the first minute and 15 seconds of the round. Barrera takes advantage, and Chocolatito puts together a couple punches here and there, but it seemed like he was taking the round off, and to me, that's not a great sign for a 37-year-old. Usually when someone's taking a round off, it's probably around like 6, 7 or so. Round 4 seemed a little bit early. I think Barrera evened up the cards on this one. But then, round 5, this is when the fight starts to turn. I don't even have many notes from round 5 because it was just basically a one-way show, and from there it was kind of looking like that for the rest of the fight. Round 6, Barrera is getting walked down by Chocolatito, and he looks exhausted. He really looks like he doesn't have much left, and he's taking a lot of big shots. And now at this point, after round 6, I have Chocolatito up not very much, up 59-57. Round 7 comes around, and for the last minute and 10 seconds of this round, Chocolatito punishes Barrera, hits him with body shots and headshots left and right. And round 8, he actually does end up dropping Barrera with a hook to the body. Honestly, to me, and I think you from the announcers who were there too, it looked like Barrera was done. And I think if you rewatch this, when the ref comes over to Barrera and asks, do you want to continue, Barrera doesn't really say anything, and the ref just kind of picks up his gloves, cleans them off, and sends them out again. And you could kind of say, quote unquote, he got saved by the bell. I don't think he really wanted to go another round or anything like that, but he ends up doing that. So now at this point, if there was any question before, Chocolatito's gonna win this fight. It's just a matter of how and when. Unfortunately for Barrera, when came a little bit longer than he would like it to, because in round 9, he starts off the round, and it's a weird thing. You got to check this out. They were touching gloves every round, it seemed, to start the fight. They'd come right to the center ring, touch gloves. But if you're talking about a guy who doesn't want to be there, who doesn't want to fight, watch what Barrera does in round 9. He takes the long way around the entire ring before he circles back to the middle and then touches gloves with Chocolatito. And when he's doing this, Chocolatito is just kind of like watches him do it, and you see him take a step back and bounce off of the ropes a little bit. Like he's like, oh, I'm just going to let him take his walk and then we'll start fighting. And then from there, once they do, Chocolatito just picks up and does exactly what he's doing before. He's throwing a bunch of punches, a flurry that's punctuated by a left hook to the head that drops him. But Barrera's a tough guy. He actually gets right back up. But again, you look at him and he doesn't want to be there. He pops the mouthpiece out. The ref looks, oh, you ready to go? Wipes off his gloves again and then just sends him back out there again. And the weird thing is that, like, even though he doesn't want to be there, you can see he's still doing what he's trained to do. So Barrera comes out, he's fighting, he's trying to give back what he's getting, but he's just overmatched and he's exhausted. This fight should have been over already. It should have been either the ref stopping it or the corner, but it reaches the end of round 9, and again, Chocolatito has a 10-8 round, and in my scorecard, he's up 89 to 82, so it's clearly, there's nothing that's going to change the outcome here. They let it go into round 10. Barrera continues to get punishment, and Chocolatito ends up getting the stoppage finally when the ref does finally stop the fight, even though he could have stopped this fight probably 3 rounds earlier. So when I say that the the Chocolatito that we saw was different from the one that we've seen before, it's that he's at bantamweight, he's older. While this was a good test, I know that the announcers were talking about, throw him in there with the top champions and everything like that. A bunch of the guys from the stars from Japan. I don't know if you want to do that just yet. I think he might want to get himself another tune-up fight just to make sure he's in the best shape he can be at this age. I know how much that Chocolatito means to Nicaragua because I know as a Filipino-American fan, he's their equivalent of what we have when we had Manny Pacquiao fighting. And so I know that Manny's going to be fighting again later this year, or would hope to, and I'm excited about that, even though I know that, age is never going to stop taking you, right? You're always going to lose out at some point, and you never know exactly when that will be. And the last thing you'd want is for Chocolatito or Manny or anyone else to take one fight too many and take damage that just can't be recovered from. So I really hope that's not going to be the case for either of these guys. I know how much they mean to their respective fan bases. So I do look forward to seeing him again. I just do hope it's going to be another tune-up first, so we get a good sense of what we really have with him. Moving on to the other bouts, I'm going to start from the beginning. So I think one of the things that I really want to do here is I want to help people to really enjoy the sport of boxing the way that I do, and what that means is I'm watching the undercards, right? So I might have missed some because I thought I was watching all the cards when I started off at 9 o'clock, but I guess maybe there was a prelims that I didn't see, so I'll have to go back and check those out. So what I ended up seeing was a total of 5 bouts, and the first bout, which was really fun, was a bout between a fighter named Billy Aceituno, who came in with a record of 2-3-1 with 0 KOs, versus Alexander Hernandez, who came in with a record of 6-0 with 3 KOs. So, of course, if you're looking at these, you know who's the A side. It's going to be Alexander Hernandez. One thing to note, Alexander Hernandez is 33 years old, so it's not like he was a new prospect or anything like that. He just, I guess, got a late start. And this was fought at super welterweight, 154 pounds for 4 rounds. Now, if you didn't know those records, and I think this is why this is fun to watch, if you didn't know, you would think that Aceituno was the guy who was meant to win this fight, because he came out and he was hurting Hernandez. Definitely a good fight to check out. And I remember in the first round, the notes I took, what I wrote down exactly was, Aceituno is more than an opponent, and Hernandez is less than a prospect. That's what I believe was the main takeaway from this for me, because when I watched this, I looked at a guy in Hernandez who probably got puffed up by fighting just the right guys to get to 6-0, and finally came across a guy who knew what he was doing with his hands, and it showed. So eventually we get to round three, and Hernandez is dropped by a body shot. Actually, three of them in a row. I think it was two rights and a left. And I don't know if the fight stopped because he couldn't get up or the count reached 10 or anything like that, but that was it. And Aceituno, once he knew that he had him hurt in the first round, he just kept on pouring it on and was relentless about it. So if you got a chance to see it, root for the B side there. You got to see something. He was a good fight to watch. Second bout, we had minimum weight fighters, 105 pounds, 8 rounds for the WBO Latino regional belt. Both these guys came out and they were in the southpaw stance. First guy who was challenging was Michael Carmona, who was a younger fighter with a 5-0 record and 3 KOs, versus Edwin Cano Hernandez, who was 12-2 with 1 draw, and I didn't catch how many KOs he had. But I'll tell you, this was like a kind of a tale of two stories. So if you have a chance to check this out, then do so. Michael Carmona comes out. He has really long arms, it seems like, and he's got good speed on his punches too, and he's using them to his advantage, catching Cano cleanly in the face a number of times in the first round. But after that, in the second round on, Cano is just marching forward, putting all the pressure he can on Carmona, and he wears him down, and eventually he's using a body attack, and you can tell that Carmona is feeling it, and he keeps on putting his lead hand down to protect his body, and it's something like that eventually leads to the end for this, because I think it was in the fourth round. Yeah, it was the fourth round. He had Carmona backing up, his hands were down, and he hit him with a clean hook right to the face to put him flat on his back. Ref didn't even bother starting a count, waved it off, fight's over. Third bout, we had a local, Kevin Vivas, who was 7-2 with 2 KOs, but the real stat on him is that the last 2 fights were his 2 losses, and they were both by knockout. He was fighting a fighter named Azael Villar, who was 23-4 with 15 KOs in the junior flyweight division, 108 pounds for 8 rounds. Vivas comes off with a lot of fight in him, and there's a lot of action in this fight, but you can kind of see the reason why Vivas got knocked out in his last 2 fights. He has a lot of heart. I don't believe he has a lot of skill, and he takes a lot of damage. So when I was watching this fight, I really thought after a couple rounds that this was for sure going to end up in the third KO for him. But like I said, he has a lot of heart, and he went out there and he gave it everything he could and actually hurt VR at a point where I thought he wasn't going to be able to anymore. So the first few rounds, it looks like it's a one-way show, and VR is definitely going to win. But he ends up catching him cleanly in the middle of the 6th round and has VR rocked. And you can tell this is like trouble for VR. And the round 6th way to this fight, it ended up going to the final bell. There was a lot of action back and forth, but the truth of the matter is Vivas was overmatched, and it showed. He took a lot of damage, and honestly, he lost a unanimous decision. I don't think that Vivas's career in boxing is going to include being a prize fighter so much as being maybe more of an opponent, but probably better suited as a sparring partner with headgear on, so that when he's taking these shots, they aren't going to be doing nearly as much damage to him as they would in the prize fight themselves. He is a come forward kind of guy. He will throw a lot of punches, so as a sparring partner, I could see that working for him, but in the long run, he wouldn't be able to do this as a career because of all the damage he ends up taking. Then in the last bout, the co-main event before Chocolatito took the stage, we had another Latino belt on the line. This was the WBO Latino Light Flyweight title, which was held by a local fighter, Eveling Ortega, 7-5 with 2 KOs. And She was fighting a Mexican fighter named Carol Gonzalez, who was 7-1-1 with 2 KOs. Light flyweight is 108 pounds, and in the female boxing, this would be 2-minute rounds, and this was an eight round fight. This one, if you've ever seen modern women's boxing, this is what you come to expect when you see women's boxing. Because they're 2-minute rounds, it's just all action from the first bell to the last bell. And that's exactly what happened for this whole fight, which is, again, when you're talking about women's fights, what typically happens is it goes to a decision. Maybe that's partly because when you don't have that extra minute, you don't have enough time to do a lot of the damage that would end up leading to a knockout in most cases, right? So you end up getting a lot of action, but you end up getting a decision more often than not. So what you could see in this is that the champion, Ortega, was hyperactive, throwing tons of punches, and Gonzalez was also doing the same. But the thing was that Gonzalez seemed to be more accurate with her punches and had more on them. So there were times when she definitely had Ortega rocked, but Ortega was also, again, relentless, coming forward, continuing to throw and throw flurries. And eventually, when it gets to the final bell, you can take it or leave it however way you would see it. It was a unanimous decision, 77-75, 78-74, 79-73 for Ortega to retain her belt. Her opponent Gonzalez definitely looked disappointed in that, but again, if you're fighting on someone's home soil, you probably have to do more than just enough to be able to take a belt away, right? So that's the one thing for her that we have from that. So I hope you stuck with me, and you hope you enjoyed listening to the fights. I enjoyed watching them. I hope if you have a chance, you can go out there and catch the replays. If I do find replays online, I'll definitely put them in the comments for you there. If you do want to hear more from me, I'm going to definitely give you my picks for later tonight in the fights. Like and subscribe, and leave a comment if there's anything you'd like to see. Thanks.